Hello, my spiritual friends, and welcome to today's live stream. I'm Cynthia Clark, and I have a beautiful show prepared for you today. We are going to talk about a topic that is maybe one that is uncomfortable, but it is so important, and it's about the value of restriction. So we go through life and we think, oh, why can't my life just flow with ease? Why can't I just manifest anything that I want whenever I want it? You know, a lot of times we feel like we have to struggle or we have to suffer. And this is sometimes incredibly valuable. So, I want to share a little bit of a channeled message that I received, and we're going to talk about it in today's live stream. And feel free to post in the chat if you have a question or a comment. And if you're watching this later, feel free to post in the comments there as well. So, in case you missed last week's live stream, we did talk about the value of divine time and how to know if you're in divine time, which is really important to be in the flow of time. And next week, we're going to be talking about creating resonance in manifesting. So, every week, I try to pick topics that are going to help you in your overall abundance, manifesting, and just to be on the ascension path because we're all raising our vibrations right now. We're all moving towards a new pathway of multidimensionality, and we are. We're going through kind of the growing pains right now. So, anyway, that is incredibly important to understand. Okay, so let's start out with the channeled message. So I do a process called automatic writing, and I go into meditation and I tune into my spirit guides, and they deliver messages to me in my writing. And so this is what they said. This one is coming from, let me get to the right page here. This one is coming from my guides. Okay. So yes, this one is from the Pleiadian Council of Light. And they said, we are the Pleiadian Council of Light and are pleased that you are in Earth Choice to be the scribe for our transmissions to assist with the ascension. Let your hair down and know that you are a dedicated communicator of the light. We want you to share a bit about the value in restriction. As you chose in other lifetimes, going into restriction for a period allows a greater opening when one is living in the dualistic space-time of Earth. It is like the stretching of a muscle. If you don't prepare the muscle first, it will break. But when it is properly trained first, it can stretch beyond what was originally possible, for it had an integration of work done with it. This is also the case with you. We would not be able to reach you unless your abilities were not exercised and worked to the point where they can now move with ease and grace. There is always value to be gleaned, even if it at first may seem pointless or futile. So, this is all a training ground for you to prepare for the next phase of your evolution and the major changes happening in and all around you. You are a holder of the light to invite those with your resonance, also with ours, to master the enhancements and upgrades that are being prepared for you. Keep following the path of listening, for you are able to receive the messages we wish for you to share. We are infusing your field with love from the Cosmic Heart Center, so you will be able to hear more easily. Hold this in your own heart and be in knowing that it shall remain with you always. So when the Pleiadians give me a message that they want me to share with you, when they're speaking to me, they're also speaking to you. So they are here to assist you in helping you to create resonance in receiving those beautiful messages so that you can understand the pathway of ascension. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the restrictions that I've received in this lifetime, just to give you some examples. And so my guides have sometimes given me some great restriction. When I first opened up my restaurant, I had a challenge in my just setting up my property. I wanted to purchase a piece of property. I wanted to get a loan from the bank. I took 2 years to prepare my recipes and really dial in what I was going to need for that restaurant. And my loan fell through right at the last minute. So I couldn't purchase the property. I couldn't do anything. I felt like I was dead in the water, because I was using all of my life savings to start up this restaurant. I was 24 years old, so I didn't have a ton of money back then. I didn't have, any of these opportunities that I thought I should have. And it turned out to be the best thing ever because we ended up leasing across the street from where we were originally looking at. It turned out the very next day, I found out about a building that was going up. They were putting it up and they needed a tenant to go in. So sometimes the universe has things fall apart on you so that you can actually receive something even better. And I do believe that the universe is always working on your behalf, it's always there trying to help you. So we ended up going into that building and we ended up purchasing it 2 years later. So I not only ended up on the better side of the street, it was all divinely orchestrated. And I still was showing up every day. I was showing up trying to create my restaurant and trying to work my restaurant. And I just want you to realize that sometimes things fall apart for a reason, and we don't always know what that reason is right away. I also had a past life regression that told me that I chose a difficult life in China, and my higher self told me all about this lifetime where I was starving. My children were starving. My husband had already died. I was totally alone in the world, trying to support my family. And it was incredibly difficult. And eventually we all died. And it was painful to watch um, my son was he starved to death. So in that lifetime, and I relived the trauma of that, and it was I was crying like I'm under hypnosis, but I was like crying like it was right, like I was right there. It was amazing. Um, but what I learned from that and what my higher self told me about that was that there was value in that restrictive life. And I chose that restrictive life in order to have more expansion later. So again, it was like the stretching of that muscle. I was stretching my muscle at that time in that lifetime, even though it was incredibly difficult. So I want you to look at your own life and ask yourself, what are the challenges that you are facing that maybe the universe is trying to help you? Okay, so ask yourself, how, instead of why is this happening to me, ask the question of why is this happening for me? Okay, so if you change that one little word, you're going to realize that the universe is trying to teach you a lesson in some capacity to assist you in moving forward. So, so there's huge value in that. Okay, so another thing that it does is it helps to open up the appreciation for later on. So when things actually do work out and you do get that perspective, suddenly you realize that, hey, that was a blessing. And if you can look at your whole life as a blessing, and there are blessings in everything, then you will realize that it is a beautiful orchestration of the divine. So, I want to share also another passage from my meditations that further talks about this. And this is all about that perspective. So, my guide said to change one's vision about anything, one must first change perspective, right? So, yeah, we just got to flip that perspective. To change perspective, one needs to remove oneself from the usual way of seeing something. So, asking perception changing questions can be helpful. So, let's start with an example. Let's say that you hate your job and you want to do something else. What is it about your job that you hate? So, when you actually identify those things that you hate, you can start to identify the opposite. So, it's like, okay, well, what would be the opposite of that? And that will show you what you love instead. Okay. So, then once you identify what you love, then you can look at what type of job could I do that includes more of what I love. All right. So you see how this pivots the perspective so that you can focus on what you love and not what you don't love. So you can follow this procedure in all areas of your life. Look at ways to bring in more of what you love that brings fulfillment and joy to your soul. Okay, so you are not meant to remain in restriction and pain for extended periods. Okay, so if you're going through a difficulty right now, know that this is a temporary situation. Much of the suffering in the world is needlessly extended because one did not grasp the bigger vision. Okay, so we got to look at that bigger vision. Also, you can identify blockages. They do show up in the hands and they show up as horizontal lines. So let me just give you some examples here. I'm going to draw on my little whiteboard here. Okay, so you can have horizontal lines that run through the fingers. Okay, these are challenge lines and they block the flow. Okay, so the fingers always want to flow up through the fingertips. Okay, so depending upon which finger you have these horizontal lines on, is going to indicate what your challenges are. Okay, so if it's in your thumb, the restriction is going to be in your manifestation. Okay, so it could be in just setting your intentions, it could be in your strategy, or it could be in just your ability to bring it into the reality. You can also have restrictions in Jupiter, which is your index finger. This will represent issues of power. So, power struggles, feeling powerless would be a Jupiter problem. Your middle finger is Saturn and it relates to duties and work. So, if you have horizontal lines running through your middle finger, you probably have money issues, or you probably have issues with um, just organizing your work, or maybe having satisfaction in your work. If we're over here on Apollo, Apollo is your ring finger and it's how you show yourself to the world. It represents your creativity and your uniqueness, that specialness that makes you you. So, horizontal lines here would be in how you present that creative energy to the world. And then your little finger, Mercury, represents your communications and it shows restrictions here when you struggle with actually speaking up and being heard, or perhaps you have a trust issue or an intimacy issue, could show up on Mercury. So take a look at your own hands and see if you have any of these little horizontal lines running through any of the fingers. By the way, they do change. Okay, so lines on the hand are very, very changeable. So just because you have a restriction right now doesn't mean that you're going to have it forever. Okay, so I also want to point out that we have some crystals that can assist us. Okay, so if you are feeling restricted and stressed out, there are some beautiful crystals that you can call on. And the first one I want to talk about is moss agate. Okay, so moss agate. I do channel the crystal messages myself, and they talk to me just like the Pleiadians talk to me, or the angels or archangels. So crystal energy is beautiful because it can help to balance your vibration. So when you start to work with a crystal, it can do different things for you, depending on which one. So moss agate looks like moss. It's green, has kind of a mossy texture to it. It's a very common, easy to find crystal. And moss agate says, I assist in bringing forward your dominant elements so they may be used in harmony with your divine purpose. When one hides behind something not natural or flowing within oneself, this restricts the ability to bring forward what is natural and flowing. This not self version of the self can even create forgetfulness of the true self, especially if left unchecked. Okay, so what this means is that if you're feeling an imbalance elementally, you can call on moss agate to assist you. And elements also show up in the hands. So if you're wondering about your primary abundance archetype, I actually created a quiz for you. Just go to ascension17.com and take my free quiz, and you can find out what your primary elements are. So if you have too much fire, for example, you want to balance that out maybe with some earth or water. If you have too much air, you want to temper that back down with maybe some earth. If you have too much earth, maybe you need to ramp it up with some air. So all of these things you can find in the hands. The next one I want to mention is rhodochrosite. Okay, I have a really nice piece here. Rhodochrosite is this beautiful pink crystal, and it's got sort of these different little circles running through it. Yeah, rhodochrosite is such a beautiful, beautiful crystal. And this one helps to warm up the icy thoughts you have about yourself and melt them to reveal the glory of your light instead. So call on me when the facade of low self worth invades your glorious aura so that I may return the accurate reflection of your soul within. Let me warm up your heart, first for yourself, for love of the self reveals knowingness of the self to allow the exalted self to emerge. So you can use this one just to get that different perspective, because a lot of times when we're in restriction, we don't have an accurate view of ourselves. And this is when we can start to really beat up on ourselves, and we can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing anything right. I can't figure this out. What is wrong with me? All of these things can come through, and rhodochrosite is one of the best crystals for self-love. So it can give you that beautiful perception that's more accurate, your more divine perception. And the last one I want to talk about is plumogumite, okay, which is a mouthful. Um, and this one is very, very expensive and very difficult to find. I happen to just be super lucky in finding this one. And so I put it on one of my palmistry tarot cards so that you can see it. The piece I have is actually too big to show you. But it's this one right down here at the bottom of this card. And so it's sort of a green, mossy color. It's got sort of this seafoam green with a little bit of a brighter green. And anyway, plumogumite is a beautiful, beautiful crystal that connects to the goddess heart. And it says, I grow over the pure spirit to attach the emotional heart of the goddess. This is the heart of unconditional love. Feel the total surrender that emerges in the I am bliss, where nothing is forced, nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, and nothing is wrong. So if you're feeling that horrible restrictive energy, and by the way, you don't have to have a piece of plumagumite to actually tune into its energy. My Arcturian guides actually told me that you can connect energetically to any crystal. So you can just say, plumagumite, I call in your energy to resonate with my vibration, to assist me with connecting to the pure spirit of the goddess heart. And when you do that and you declare it and you set that intention, you will call it in. So that's another way that you can connect with any of the crystals. So it's super helpful to work with them. So, anyway, I hope this is helpful for you today. And of course, we don't want to be in restriction all the time, right? We want to be able to grow and expand. But try to take a look at your life and really look at, how is this working for me? And if you can do that and you can gain that new perspective and recognize that you're stretching your muscles, like the Pleiadians said, you know, um, we can't just go into that, super stretched point until we work it, right? We're working things and we're improving every day and we're making progress every day. And just remember that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are exactly in the right situation and the right circumstances for your personal soul growth. So just remember that. And you haven't made any mistakes. Don't be so hard on yourself. People are terribly hard on themselves, and it's completely unnecessary. So as long as you come with an open heart and a willingness to learn and improve and come back into that love energy, then you are going to do that. All right. So that's the keys that I want you to take away today. So I try to do these live streams every week, by the way. So come back next week and we're going to talk about resonance in manifesting. And I also invite you to just go to my website if you're interested in some free abundance training. I do have that available as well. And it's to guide you in understanding your blocks and understanding how manifesting works. So there is a system to manifesting. And ultimately, if you're in alignment with your spiritual self and your soul self, you are going to be able to create a beautiful life for yourself that is not only joyful and fulfilling, but it also is to help you reach your highest potential. And that's what I love to do with you. So thank you so much for coming. And I wish you a beautiful, beautiful day. And I hope to see you next week.